Quantico, Virginia, September 30th, 2025. The United States military is undergoing what officials are calling a sharp ideological about-face, one that aims to restore the armed forces' sense of discipline, physical readiness, and traditional standards. At the heart of this push is Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, who, standing before cadets and senior officers at the Marine Corps base in Quantico, made it clear that the days of lax grooming and physical fitness are over. Pete Hegseth, US Secretary of Defense, declared, "Frankly, it's exhausting to see fat soldiers in combat formations, or really any formation. Likewise, it's completely unacceptable to see fat generals and admirals in the halls of the Pentagon and leading commands around the country and the world. It makes a bad impression. It's bad, and it's not who we are." His words were blunt, even jarring to some ears in the hall, but they set the tone for a sweeping cultural reset that both he and President Donald Trump have been pressing for since returning to office. This new directive, according to the Pentagon, is meant to restore what they call the warrior ethos, a focus on fighting fitness, discipline, and the image of a cohesive force ready to meet any challenge. Hegseth's comments were not limited to physical conditioning. He drew a direct line between outward appearance and military readiness, warning that even small signs of sloppiness erode standards. Hegseth said, "That also means standards for appearance. No more beards, no more long hair, no more superficial individual expression. We're going to cut our hair, shave our beards, and adhere to the standards, because it's like the broken windows theory of policing. If you let the little things go, eventually the big things will go. So you have to take care of the little things." This, he emphasized, was not about style or personal preference, but about discipline. In his words, grooming and uniformity send a signal about the seriousness of the force to allies, adversaries, and the American public. In Quantico, a place long associated with the Marine Corps' rigorous traditions, the symbolism was unmistakable. The speech coincided with new directives already sent to bases across the country, immediate enforcement of grooming rules, renewed focus on physical fitness tests, and, in the words of one senior official, an end to excuses. The move reflects a philosophy often embraced in military history that visible discipline reflects deeper readiness. By drawing attention to soldiers' waistlines and grooming, Hegseth has sparked debate about whether the US military had grown complacent during years of counterinsurgency wars and extended deployments. Hegseth's remarks come amid reports that Pentagon leaders have privately expressed concern about what they see as a drift in standards. Some commanders have complained that the growing rate of obesity among recruits and serving personnel threatens operational readiness. The Defense Department's own data in recent years has shown a worrying increase in the number of troops who fail basic fitness tests. Behind the blunt language is a recognition of a serious challenge. Only a small fraction of young Americans currently meet the physical and medical requirements to enlist, and a sizable portion of serving troops have been exempted from strict standards due to repeated deployments, injuries, or other factors. Observers in Washington noted that Hegseth's remarks were in keeping with his long-standing style as a former Army officer and television commentator, plain-spoken, combative, and unafraid of controversy. His reference to the broken windows theory, a policing concept that argues enforcing small rules deters larger breakdowns, underscored his belief that discipline in appearance and physical fitness forms the foundation for larger military effectiveness. The phrase that drew the most attention, "fat soldiers," reverberated through newsrooms and social media within minutes of his speech. For some, it highlighted a return to old-school toughness. For others, it came across as unnecessarily harsh and stigmatizing. According to defense officials, the new standards have been strongly endorsed by President Donald Trump, who has often lamented what he calls a decline in the military's fighting spirit. In private discussions and at campaign rallies, Trump has expressed frustration that the armed forces, despite record-high budgets, have seen recruitment shortfalls and growing concerns about troop readiness. Advisors say the president sees the renewed focus on fitness and grooming as part of a broader effort to rebuild what he calls the warrior class in America, a phrase he has used repeatedly in speeches. Reaction among service members has been mixed. Some soldiers and Marines welcomed what they described as a return to clear standards and a sense of pride. Others worried that the focus on appearance might overshadow deeper issues such as training, modernization, and troop welfare. A senior non-commissioned officer at Fort Bragg, speaking anonymously, said, "We've seen standards slip. It's good to see leadership taking it seriously again, but it has to be more than speeches. We need support, better training facilities, time for physical fitness, and leadership that enforces the rules fairly. The announcement has also sparked debate among policymakers and commentators in Washington. Some defense analysts argue that while discipline is important, the Pentagon faces bigger challenges such as recruiting high-tech talent, modernizing weapons systems, and countering global threats. Critics suggest that focusing public attention on beards and waistlines risks turning a serious national security challenge into a culture war flashpoint. However, others note that military history is full of examples where discipline in seemingly small matters shaped the morale and effectiveness of forces in the field. Military historians pointed out that the US armed forces have often gone through such cycles. During prolonged wars, especially when recruitment was stretched thin, standards sometimes slipped, only to be reimposed during periods of reform and rebuilding. The Marine Corps' legendary reputation for toughness, for example, has long been tied to strict physical and grooming requirements. By choosing Quantico as the venue for his speech, Hegseth appeared to align himself with that tradition. Supporters of the new initiative say it signals something larger than just a grooming rule. In their view, it reflects an attempt to shift the military culture back to one that prizes readiness, cohesion, and a sense of shared identity. Hegseth insisted, "We're going to cut our hair, shave our beards, and adhere to the standards because it's like the broken windows theory. You have to take care of the little things." Such statements suggest that for the Pentagon's new leadership, restoring discipline in the small details is the first step toward rebuilding the military's overall edge. Allies and adversaries alike pay close attention to the culture of the US military. Analysts say that images of disciplined, fit troops send a message of strength, while stories of falling standards can embolden rivals. Defense officials argue that in an era of renewed great power competition, perception matters. A force that looks sharp, they say, is one that appears ready, and that readiness itself can deter conflict. The Pentagon has announced that over the coming months, new fitness benchmarks will be enforced across all services, and grooming standards will be uniformly applied. Commanders will be held responsible for ensuring compliance. There are also plans to expand fitness training programs, upgrade gym facilities on bases, and provide dietary guidance to help troops meet the stricter requirements. Senior officers have been told they must lead by example, a point Hegseth made explicitly by calling out not just rank-and-file soldiers, but also fat generals and admirals. Military sociologists point out that during 2 decades of counterterrorism operations, many troops operated under relentless deployment cycles that left little room for strict enforcement of appearance or conditioning rules. Reimposing those standards now will require not just orders from the top, but also resources, time, and a cultural shift within the ranks. In closing his address at Quantico, Hegseth struck a tone of determination, framing the initiative as essential to the honour and effectiveness of the US Armed Forces. Pete Hegseth said, "It's a bad look. It is bad, and it's not who we are." The remark encapsulated his view that fitness and discipline are not cosmetic issues, but go to the heart of military identity. Whether this moment will mark a lasting shift remains to be seen. But in a period when the United States faces complex security challenges abroad and struggles with recruitment at home, the push for a leaner, sharper, more disciplined force has clearly become a priority for the Pentagon's top leadership. For now, the words "no more beards, no more long hair" have become shorthand for a broader campaign, one that aims to signal both to the troops and to the world that America's military is determined to reclaim its image of fighting readiness.